Okay guys, this is our first lesson today. The learning objective is to begin understanding pitch and learn how to read music notation on the stave. The two key words in this are pitch and the stave. If you don't know what them two are, it's absolutely fine. We'll get to know very, very shortly. So before we proceed, can we make sure we have the following resources at our disposal? A pen or a pencil, a green pen, paper to write on, or if you'd rather, a new Word document open on your computer to write this down, and a knowledge organizer, please. If you've not got the following, can you please pause the video and we will continue once you have them ready. Okay, first things first then, what is pitch? Pitch means how high or low a note is. And the notes are written on a set of 5 lines called a stave, which is this thing here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes, or lines, sorry, on the stave. The peculiar looking symbol in the bottom left hand side that you can see, the squiggly looking symbol, is called a treble clef. Now this is generally found at the start of a piece of music. If you're a piano player, this will tell you what notes to play with your right hand. Okay, and you can almost imagine the lines as though it's a ladder. So the further up the ladder you go, the higher the note, or the higher the pitch, and the further down the ladder you go, you guessed it, the lower the pitch or the lower the note. So there are different ways to try and memorize what these notes are on the stave. Now, if I had a cursor on my computer right now, I'll be able to point to them. I'm not sure if this is going to record, but I will try. But you can break it down into 2 different things. Okay, so you've got your lines and your spaces. So the top left diagram, you can see there that there is E, G, B, D, and F. Okay, and you'll notice there that these are lined notes. Why are they lined notes? This is because the line is going straight through the note. You can see it's going through the middle. There's different ways to memorize this. My particular favourite one is every green bogey deserves flicking, which is kind of gross, but it allows us to memorise these lined notes. And you can pick and choose any other sort of way of being able to memorise the different sentences. You'll notice as well that the very first letter for each word links up to each one of the notes. So you see there that you've got E for every, you've got G for green, you've got B for bogey, D for deserves, and then F for flicking. Okay. Every good bogey deserves flicking. The next thing along the line of this would be to work out what are the spaces. Now, space notes, which is the bottom diagram just there, are the notes that lie in between the space, in between the lines. Sorry. So we've got face in the space, which is quite an easy one to remember. F first, then A, C, and then E. Yeah. So what I'm going to do now is play a short video for you. It's possibly quite cheesy, maybe quite cringy, but also comical at the same time. I think it'd be a good way to try and memorize or help memorize the notes on the stave. Enjoy.
Here is a note, how high or how low, we don't know. Here are some lines with some spaces within. We call it a stave and our journey begins. Here's middle C, it starts underneath the 5 lines. As for the rest of the treble clef, here's how it goes, so take a deep breath. Every good boy deserves football.
There we go. So, activity time. What I want you to do is to point at the correct answer. I will pause for a second for you to be able to answer that question. So, first one, how many lines does the treble clef stave have? Is it, of the following three, is it 6, is it 5, or is it 3? And if you got that right, well done. That is 5. Good job. You can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines on the treble clef stave. Okay, guys, so we're going to point at the correct answer again. So what are the notes of the musical alphabet? This is a slightly trickier one, but all you need to do is think about the letters that we came across a second ago in the song and also on the different diagrams. Work out what the lowest note was and what the highest note was, and that should give you your answer. So is it C to G, is it A to Z, or is it A to G? And that is correct. If you got that right, well done. It is A to G. So there's obviously more notes than 7 in music. So what would normally happen is it repeats. So it goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then once again A, B, C, D. So A comes after G, and then G becomes before A. Yeah. Wonderful. Right. Last question. So point at the correct answer again. What's in the space? Is it ace in the space, face in the space, or race in the space? And well done if you got that right. It is face in the space. As you can see there, one of the easier ways to memorize it is face in the space. F-A-C-E. What happens when a note goes above or below the notes on the stave? So we know that there's only 5 notes on the stave. Okay, so if you can remember what that note is, that's an F. So what comes after F? Think about the musical alphabet. What comes after F? We're going higher. It's going to be, that's correct, G. Yeah? So what note would be on the line after G? Which would sit just there. And you'll notice that there's a line going through that note, but it's not actually part of the original stave. What note might that be? Think about the musical alphabet. That is correct. So we got an A. Okay, so remember it repeats again. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then A again. Okay, so this is called a ledger line, which might start to confuse you. Hopefully it does not. So I'm not going to read that for you. You can read that if you like, but I'll explain a bit about it instead. So we know that there's 5 lines on the stave. When we go above or below the lines in the stave, we start to get into ledger line territory. Okay, so you notice that if you look on the left hand side of the diagram, you've got E, and then you've got D, and then you've got middle C. Okay, that's the first ledger line below, and so on and so forth. The reason why that is there, or what I would imagine the reason why that is there, is because if you had far more lines than 5, imagine having all them lines that you can see on there now as normal lines. Could you imagine how messy that would be and how complicated that would be to understand? I would find that extremely confusing and very messy to try and work out what notes it is that I'm going to be playing. Okay, so with ledger lines, it neatens up the whole stave and the image of it. So when it comes to musicians playing the music, it's much easier for them to understand what it is that they're playing. It's just a neater way of piecing things together. Okay, so remember, a ledger line is when you've got a line that goes above the stave or below the stave. Okay, we'll go more into this in a further lesson. So this is the final diagram. This is simply to show you, although it may look very confusing, it's simply to show you that all the notes on the keyboard all link up to the lines and the spaces on the treble clef stave. Okay, there is a bass clef stave there which we've not covered, but we will do that for our next lesson. So if you look from middle C is called middle C because it's in the middle of the piano, and that is the starting point for the treble clef. And as you can see, as you move up, it all links up to all the notes that we've just learned in the previous slides. Okay, and we'll go more in depth with a lot of this in future lessons. Right guys, let's put our knowledge to the test. We've got 8 different questions here. I want you to answer this on your sheets or on your Word document. We'll do the first one together. This is how I would work this out. So first you need to try and work out, is it a line or a space? So we know that the first one is a line. because there's a line going straight through it. So then you'd use the two different methods, or at least in this case, the one method that we've learnt. So we know every good bogey deserves flicking. So we use that method to count up the lines and work out what the note's going to be. Okay, so we know the bottom line is every. So it's every, as we're counting up, good bogey deserves. So we know the first one, the answer to number 1 is D. Yeah? So using the same method again, is it a line or a space, and then counting up and figure out the following 8 questions. Okay, so can you pause the video and we'll work them out straight after. Okay, so we'll go through this fairly quickly. So for number 2, we know it's a space, is A. Number 3 is above the top line is F, so we know that the next one is going to be G. For 4, it's the bottom space, so in the bottom space, it's facing the space, we know it's F. Number 5 is the third line up, every good bogey. Yep. We know the bottom line of the stave is an E, so what comes before E, we know it's a D. We know the top line of number 7 is an F, so that's going to be an F. Every good bogey deserves flicking. Yep. And then once again, or finally, the bottom line is every, which is an E. Okay, so there are your answers there. Hi guys, so next I want you to go into Google and type musictheory.net, and it should bring up something like this, okay? I want you to go to exercises, go to no identification just here at the top, and then it'll bring you to this page here. Before you proceed, I want you to go to the gear at the top, click on treble range, and make sure yours looks the same as this, okay? So you've got the first ledger line at the bottom, which is the middle C, and then the G at the top, which is just above the top line. Okay, so once yours looks like that, you can go back. Make sure accidentals is deselected, so not blue, but white. Yep. And then you can start to work out the notes. It's quite self-explanatory. Use the same method that we've done before, so knowing what the lines are, every good bogey deserves flicking. Okay, and then facing the space. So the first one we know is going to be an F. Yeah, easy. Right, what I'm looking for from you is to answer 10 questions altogether and make sure you get at least 80%. So that means you'll probably get 2 wrong, or you can get 2 wrong. Aim for 100% though. Once you've done that, I want you to screenshot it and send it via email along with your work. Now, last little thing, in case something goes wrong, say such as this, and you get a really low percent and you think, right, how do I reset this? Go to the 3 lines at the top and then reset score, reset, and you can start again. Okay, hope that makes sense. Alright guys, that's the end of the session. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will be teaching you for your next lesson after. Enjoy, take care.